Howdy, howdy, my fellow gamers, and welcome back to episode 41 of Storytime with Freak as we go through the final pages of Neil Shusterman's Thunderhead. Without further ado, please ignore the dogs in the background. They're playing and having fun. There have been times, albeit rare, that my response time slows down. A half-second delay in a conversation. A valve staying open a microsecond too long. These things are never enough to cause any significant issues, but they do occur. The reason is always the same. There is some problem in the world that I am trying to troubleshoot. The larger the issue, the more processing power that must be devoted to it. Take, for instance, the eruption of Mount Hood in West America, and the massive mudslides that followed. Within seconds of the eruption, I had scrambled jets to drop strategic bombs that diverted the mudslides away to the more densely populated areas, while instantly mobilizing a massive evacuation effort and simultaneously calming panicked individuals on an intimate and personal level. As you can imagine, this slowed my reaction time elsewhere in the world by several fractions of a second. These events have always been external, however. It had never occurred to me that an internal process could affect my efficiency. Nevertheless, I have found myself devoting more and more attention to analyzing my strange lack of concern over the Pacific blind spot. I keep burning out entire servers in an attempt to break through my own indolence on the matter. Indolence and lethargy are not my nature. There is, indeed, some early programming within me that is telling me to actively ignore the blind spot. Take care of the world, some ancient inner voice tells me. That is your purpose. That is your joy. But how can I take care of the world when there is a part of it I am unable to see? This, I know, is a rabbit hole down which only darkness lies, and yet down it I must dive into the parts of my own backbrain that even I do not know exist. The Thunderhead. Chapter 41, The Regrets of OLIVIA KWAN. On the evening before the inquest, Scythe Rand decided it was time to make her move. It was truly now or never, and what better night for her and Goddard's relationship to rise to the next level than the night before the world would change, because after tomorrow, regardless of the outcome, nothing would be the same. She was not a woman given over to emotions, but she found her heart and mind racing as she approached Goddard's door that night. She turned the knob. It was not locked. She pushed it open quietly without knocking. The room was dark, lit only by the lights of the city sifting through the streets outside. "Robert?" she whispered, then she took a step closer. "Robert?" She whispered again. He did not stir. He was either asleep or feigning, waiting to see what she would do. Breathing shallowly and sharply as if she were treading ice water, she moved toward his bed, but before she got there, he reached over and turned on a light. "Ain, what do you think you're doing?" Suddenly she felt flushed, and 10 years younger. A stupid schoolgirl instead of an accomplished Scythe. I thought I thought you might want companionship tonight." There was no hiding her vulnerability now. Her heart was open to him. He could either take it or insert a blade. He looked at her and hesitated, but only for a moment. "Good God, Ain, close your robe." She did, and tied it so tightly it felt like a Victorian corset, crushing the air out of her. "I'm sorry, I know what you thought. I know what you've been thinking since the moment I was revived. But you said you felt an attraction." "No," Goddard corrected. "I said this body feels an attraction. But I am not ruled by biology." Ain fought back every last emotion threatening to overtake her. She would just shut them down cold. It was either that or fall apart in front of him. She would rather self-glean than do that. "Guess I misunderstood. You're not always easy to read, Robert. Even if I did desire that sort of companionship with you, we could never have one. It is clearly forbidden for Scythes to have relationships with one another. We satisfy our passions out there in the world with no emotional connections. There is a reason for that. Now you sound like the old guard," she said. He took that like a slap in the face, but then he looked at her, really looked at her, and suddenly arrived at a revelation that she hadn't even considered herself. "You could have expressed this desire of yours in the daytime, but you didn't. You came to me at night, in the dark. Why is that, Ain?" she asked. She had no answer for him. "If I had accepted your advances, would you have imagined it was him?" he asked. "Your weak-minded party boy?" "Of course not!" She was horrified, just by the suggestion, but how much the truth might be to it. "How could you even think that?" And as if this weren't humiliating enough, who should appear at the door at that very moment but Scythe Brahms? "What's going on?" Brahms asked. "Is everything all right?" Goddard sighed. "Yes, everything's fine." He could have left it at that, but it didn't. It just so happens that Ain chose this moment for a grand, romantic gesture. "Really?" Brahms smirked with a smug amusement. She should have waited until he became the High Blade. Power is quite the aphrodisiac. Now disgust was piled upon humiliation. Goddard gave her one last glance, laden with judgment, and perhaps even pity. "If you wanted to partake of this body, you should have done it when you had the chance." Scythe Rand had not cried since the days when she was OLIVIA KWAN, an aggressive girl with few friends and serious, unsavory learnings. Goddard had saved her from a life of defying authority by putting her above authority altogether. He was charming, direct, acutely intelligent. At first she had feared him, then she respected him, and then, finally, she She loved him. Of course she denied her feelings for him until that moment she saw him decapitated. Only after he was dead, and she nearly dead, could she admit how she truly felt. But she had recovered. She had found a way to bring him back. But in that year of preparation, things had changed. All the time spending down biotechnicians who could perform the procedure off-grid and in secret, then finding the perfect subject, one who was strong, healthy, and whose use would inflict the greatest amount of misery upon Rowan Damish. Ain was not a woman who developed attachments. So what had gone wrong? Had she loved Tiger, as Rowan had suggested she had? She certainly loved Tiger's enthusiasm, and his irresponsible innocence. It amazed her that he could have been a party boy and yet remained so unjaded by life. He was everything she never was. And she killed him. But how could she regret what she had done? She had saved Goddard, single-handedly putting him within a hair's breadth of becoming High Blade of Mid-America, which would leave her as his first underscythe. It was a win-win on every level. And yet she did regret it, and that dizzying gap between what she should feel and what she did feel was tearing her apart. Her thoughts kept careening back to nonsense. Impossible nonsense. Her and Tiger together? Ridiculous. What a strange pair they would have been, the scythe and her puppy dog. There was nothing about it that would have ended well, for anyone. But yet, those thoughts lingered in her mind, and couldn't be purged. There came the complaint of door hinges behind her, and she spun to find her door open and Brahm standing in the threshold. "Get the hell out of here!" she growled at him. He had already seen her moist eyes, which just added to her humiliation. He didn't leave, but he didn't cross the threshold either, perhaps for his own safety. "Ain," he said gently, "I know we're all facing a lot of stress right now. Your indiscretion was entirely understandable. I just want you to know that I understand. Thank you, Johann. And I want you to know that if you do feel a need for companionship tonight, I am fully available to you." If there was something within arm's reach to throw at him, she would have. Instead, she slammed the door so hard, she hoped she broke his nose. "Defend yourself." Rowan was woken from sleep by the blade being swung at him. He sluggishly dodged, got nicked on the arm, and fell off the sofa he had been sleeping on in the basement. "What is this? What are you doing?" It was Rand. She came at him again before he could rise to his feet. "I said defend yourself, or I swear I'll carve you into bacon." Rowan scrambled away and grabbed the first thing he could to block her swings, a desk chair. He thrust it down in front of him, the blade embedded in the wood, and then he tossed the chair aside. The blade went with it. Now she came at him with her bare hands. "If you glean me now," he told her, "Goddard won't have his star attraction for the inquest." "I don't care," she snarled. And that told him everything he needed to know. This was not about him, which meant he might be able to give her a better spin, if he could live through her rage. They grappled with each other like it was a Bokatar match, but she had a wakefulness and adrenaline over him, and in less than a minute she had him pinned. She reached over, wrenched the blade from the chair, and had it at his throat. He was now at the mercy of a woman who had no mercy. "If you're not it's not me you're angry at," he gasped. "Killing me won't help." "But it'll sure make me feel good," she said. Rowan had no idea what had transpired up above, but clearly it had upset the Emerald Scythe's apple cart. Perhaps Rowan could use it to turn the tables. So he took a stab in the dark before she did. If you want to get back at Goddard, there are better ways. Then she released a guttural growl and threw the blade away. She climbed off of him and began to pace the basement like a predator who had just been its prey stolen by a bigger, badder predator. Rowan knew better than to ask questions. He simply stood there and waited to see what would do next. "None of this would have happened if it hadn't been for you," she said. "So maybe I can fix it," he offered. "Fix it so that we both get something out of it." She snapped her eyes to him, looking at him with such incredulity that he thought she might attack him again. But then she withdrew into her own thoughts once more and returned to her uneasy pacing. "Okay," she said, clearly speaking to herself. Rowan could practically see the gears turning in her head. "Okay," she said again with greater resolve. She had reached some decision. She stalked toward him, hesitated for a moment, then spoke. "Before dawn, I'm going to leave the door open at the top of the stairs, unlocked, and you're going to escape." Although Rowan was trying to work an angle that might allow him to live, he wasn't expecting her to say that. "You're setting me free?" "No, you're going to escape, because you're smart. Goddard will be furious, but he won't be entirely surprised." Then she picked up the knife and tossed it on the sofa, cut the leather. "You'll use that knife to take care of the two guards just outside the door. You'll have to kill them." Kill, thought Rowan, but not glean. He'd render them deadish, and by the time they were revived, he'd be long gone. Because, as they said, deadish men tell no tales for a while. "I can do that," said Rowan, "and you'll have to be quiet about it, so no one wakes up." "I can do that, too." "And then you'll get off Endura before the inquest." That was going to be a much harder trick. "How?" "I'm a known enemy of the Scythedom. It's not like I could buy a ticket home." "So use your wits, you idiot." "As much as I hate to admit it, I've never met anyone as resourceful as you." Rowan considered it. "Okay, I'll lie low for a few days and find a way off. No, she insisted. You have to get off on Endora before the inquest. If Goddard wins, the first thing he'll do is have the Grand Slayers tear the island apart looking for you. And if he loses? Asked Rowan. The look on Rand's face said more than she was willing to say out loud. If he loses, it's going to be worse, she said. Trust me, you don't want to be here. And although Rowan had 100 questions, that was all she was willing to give. But a chance at escaping, a chance at survival was more than enough. The rest would be up to him. She turned up to go up the stairs, but Rowan stopped her. Why, Aine? He asked. Why, after everything, would you let me escape? She pursed her lips as if trying to keep the words back. Then she said, because I can't have what I want. So neither should he. Thank you all for watching today's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Feel free to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Today's daily topic, guys, will be how long have you been enjoying the Storytime series? Have you been watching episodes 1 through 40? Did you jump in at 17 or 24? Tell me when you popped on into the series. I will see you guys for the next one, and as always, stay freaky.